Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel, and I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather forecast for the week of March 22nd through the 28th. And really the main event of this week is going to be a full moon in Libra at 9 degrees on Saturday. We're going to really feel the energy of that full moon and what it really is representing, probably starting pretty much on Thursday and going all the way through the weekend and into early next week. Mainly because the full moon, which is the moon in Libra opposite the sun in Aries, there's also a Sun, Venus, Chiron conjunction going on. So the full moon is going to be opposite the Sun, Venus, Chiron conjunction, and even Ceres too, all in Aries. So the Sun, Venus, Chiron conjunction is going to start really tightening up by Thursday and really start to get that energy moving by then, and then peak on Saturday during the full moon, and it will continue into next week. So it's really it is the main energy signature of this week. All that Venus, Sun, Chiron, Ceres, and Aries energy. And also, there's one other energy signature that's going to have a pretty big effect on the early part of the week. So I want to talk mainly about those two things this week. And so I'm going to backpedal a little and go with the first thing, which is going to really affect the earlier part of the week. And that is Mercury in Pisces still squaring Mars in Gemini exact on Tuesday, and they are both also connected to Pluto during this. Mercury will be semi-squaring Pluto, and Mars will be sessi-quadrating Pluto. So this is pretty ornery energy for sure. When Mercury and Mars get together, it can be really the communication and our viewpoint and what we're thinking about things becomes very, very subjective, very, very egotistical, and therefore is not receptive, is not really taking in a lot of energy, and can easily get irritated with others or impatient with others. Now it's interesting on this one because Mercury is in weak position. As I said last week, Mercury in Pisces is both in detriment and in fall. So it's in its weakest sign where it normally is not functioning in its best, in what it considers its best way of functioning, which is a cool, logical, intellectual approach. When Mercury is in Pisces, the emotions have a lot of influence on what we're thinking and speaking, and can kind of get us into like off track as far as logic and things like that are concerned. But what's interesting about this one though is Mars is in Gemini, and that's one of Mercury's signs that it rules, where it likes to be. So basically what's going on here is Mercury is receiving Mars, and that should soften a little bit of the edge. But you know, the thing is about the Mars in Gemini, you know, remember Mars can be really headstrong at times. So when it goes into Gemini, it can definitely be very headstrong, and it can get like, I think the impatience level can get really, really ratcheted up right now during this thing, and during this aspect, and then you add in the Pluto, and it can get a lot more intense, because the Pluto can, you know, in relation to Mars, it can, you know, if Mercury and Mars are making like decisions that are, you know, impulsive, not well thought out, driven by anger, irritation, or frustration, then you throw Pluto into the mix, and you can start paving a path of destruction for yourself in where you're going. So you have to be really careful with that energy. And then even, adding Mercury and Pluto together can also get very, very intense, because Mercury and Pluto have a way of wanting to get coercive together, wanting to, push out basically propaganda in the sense of trying to push whatever you feel is your viewpoint. So this is really energy early this week where anybody that you have like some of these issues going on, where you're feeling impatient, where you're feeling like irritated by them, where you're feeling like any kind of like negative energy, it can really, really blow up this week. And we can really, like, Mars in Gemini, like I said, can be kind of headstrong, not really think things through before it acts, and then, can start laying down some actions and groundwork that can really lead to a path of confrontation with others, anger, upsets, disputes, mental games, people messing with one another, things like that. So, and like I said, you throw in the Pluto, and not only is it a coercive game, but it also can be something where you're just paving the road to your own failure, to your own, letdown. So have to be really, definitely a little bit careful with that energy. And then to top that all off, on Wednesday, we have the day of the week where the moon locks into the Uranus-Saturn square, and it will be forming a T-square. It'll be the moon in Leo will be opposing Saturn in Aquarius, and a T-square with Uranus and Taurus that day. So more likely than not, so we're going to get some upsetting kind of news. It may be tied in with this Mercury, Mars, Pluto stuff, and we're going to overreact probably in an emotional way, or others may overreact around us, and we may find ourselves by Wednesday having to make some serious decisions based on what these upsets are and what this wild energy is. So, basically, I'm really feeling like anybody who you're having issues with, that, you can consider, what you are judging as a negative kind of energy or emotion, can really come to some kind of tension point this early this week, especially on Tuesday and Wednesday. So that's the one main energy we're dealing with this week. And then the other one, like I said, we've got the full moon on Saturday in Libra at 9 degrees. So now what is going to happen is, before that full moon happens, the Sun and Venus are going to conjunct in Aries, and then one after another, they're going to conjunct Chiron too. So, once again, and I talked about this last week, the shift into Aries energy is very interesting now, because Aries is a very self-driven energy. And so the Sun and Venus are both like, the Sun is very strong in Aries because it's all about the self. It's all about pushing our path forward. But Venus, which is all about relationships, it's tricky in Aries. It's in detriment in Aries, where because it's not being receptive enough, there's an imbalance that's created in relationships. There's too much subjectiveness. There's not enough receptiveness. So when the two of them get together like this, it can really inflate that even more. Because number one, you've got the Aries energy, which is more favorable for the Sun. And number two, the Sun itself, our personality, when it's strong, can actually be a detriment to our relationships. They can, when our personalities are too strong, when they're too overwhelming, it can damage relationships in the sense of driving people away. And that doesn't mean that you're not liked or you're not loved. It just means that your personality, your sun, your ego, your energy, your you, yourself is so strong. The light of it is so bright. The energy of it is so high that it burns out the energy of Venus to be able to relate in a balanced way. It sucks Venus into a little bit too much of a me first kind of attitude. And especially in Aries, where Venus is very much into the me first attitude, where it's like wants to be the first in line. And as I said last week, Venus in Aries is vivacious, it's friendly, it's outgoing and all that, but it's not really taking a lot in. It's really, got its own path and really wants us to come along. So this can really like inflate that kind of energy. And it's funny because, the Sun Venus together does bring a lot of like people, new experience, new things, money, possibly new assets, new artistic creativity into our life. And it's really self-motivating. It gets us to want to do things. And, we do want to make like the connections and stuff, but there's just this imbalance going on where there's not enough coming in, and therefore we end up getting ourselves into the Chiron zone with the two of these, where we can be creating wounding to ourselves and to others in our area, in our environment, in our surroundings, because we get all caught up in this kind of like more me first kind of attitude, and that can create wounding in our relationships. So, like the Sun and Chiron, when they're together, they're trying to process a lot of different things about what has hurt us, what are the lessons we're trying to learn from that, and then we're trying to, heal those wounds and almost like create a new us or bring out a new part of our personality that is wiser and is more balanced and in harmony. And then when you bring in Venus, it's the same thing with Chiron, except it's trying to help heal relationships and bring relationships to a new beginning. So there's like a lot of energy that's available to do that kind of stuff, but it's really hard to get out of this subjective Aries personality area that we're coming out of to find the right balance. So it's really, and then to top all that off too, all three of those bodies, the Sun, Venus, and Chiron, are semi-squaring Jupiter. And to me, that's even going to inflate the me first ego side of this energy even more. So you can see what our mission is going to be this week. It's going to be very, very difficult to find balance within relationships because of this strong Aries energy that's feeding the Sun, that's feeding the ego, that's feeding the self, and shutting down some of the receptivity we normally have. Yet there's great opportunities to start some exciting new relationships. Now, we get to the full moon in Libra on Saturday, and it's going to shine its light when the light is the brightest, it's the full moon, on to those three together, the Sun, Venus, and Chiron, and somewhat Ceres too, also over in Aries and a little bit separated from those other three, but still within orb of a conjunction. And as I've said over and over, the Chiron in Aries is all about being responsible for our own healing. That at a certain point, we have to take the first step. The first step to our healing is admitting that we have the wound and admitting to the wrongs that created the wound. So that is really the beginning of this path, and you have to look at it as a path of adventure, like an Aries kind of warrior that we're being a warrior for our own healing. That's what we really need to be in this situation. So here we've got the full moon at 9 degrees. And remember, you want to look in your chart. Where is 9 degrees Libra? And where is 9 degrees Aries? So that'll show you the two houses that this full moon is crossing into and affecting in your life. And then if you have any other planets at around 8, 9, or 10 degrees, they'll most likely be aspecting this full moon, and they will also color the energy in your personal life about how this full moon comes through. So what does the full moon in Libra really mean? I mean, Libra is all about the other, seeing ourselves through the other. It's all about relationships. It's all about that kind of thing. So, Libra is in the desire to want relationship, in the desire to want balance and harmony within relationship. And here's this Aries energy that's like so, wrapped up in itself that it's very difficult to find that balance in the relationship. And so, that's the axis that we're moving across here. It's the self versus other axis. And the desire for the emotional side to have a connection with others, that, humans need connection with others as much as we need air, water, food, sleep, all these other important things. So this is, a very needing part of our emotional self, to have that connection with others for our own satisfaction, to reflect things off of others so that we can see ourselves within them and find and get a better viewpoint of ourselves. But that Aries energy is like very much not interested in what others have to say. It's much more about wanting to be all about me and me leading the way, and almost perceiving others as people who slow us down. So we have this this tense energy between those two needs, the emotional need, the security need of others in our lives, and the need for our own life to have the adventures we want it to have, and that motivate us and move us forward. So very interesting energy going on there. And then when you think about you bring in the Chiron and the Venus, and you can see once again, relationships are the things that can be most under stress in this situation. I mean, the ruler of the chart is that Venus in Aries, in that weak position of being in a sign that is not something where Venus can normally find that balance. So we definitely have a big challenge here. Now, the cool thing is, there's a couple things that could help us out here. The moon is actually going into a trine with Saturn, and so it can bring some stability into the relationship. Saturn in Aquarius, it's going to have a trine with that, so that could actually bring some stability into relationships. And it also is trining Mars in Gemini, which is conjunct the North Node. And that's very interesting too, because it shows that we understand on some level that we really do need to have these relationships, even to get our own goals and agenda met, that we need to find the right people to connect with and do that. So it's like there is some helpful things. And Mars is even sextiling Ceres. So it's showing that, if we can find the right people and groups to connect with that motivate us, have a lot of the same goals and in mind that we have, then we can create opportunities for one another to get the nurturing that we need, to get the emotional needs that we need met, and then also bring some stability into the relationship. So, you have this nice kind of air grand trine thing going on at the same time that we're having this tough opposition. So it's a real interesting little mix of energy going on this week. And I think the biggest challenge of this is going to be like, how do we get what we want out of the relationships without upsetting others or creating even more of an imbalance within those relationships? And how do we get beyond like the people that, right now we're having issues with? Because that's the stuff that's going to really tick the negative Aries side of that. And I think like maybe just like, the Mars and Pluto of having that realization that, we do have a lot of these common goals and that we can create something stable with others that we connect with and have like understandings with of where we're going together, that could help us in finding our way through this week and this energy. Yeah, it's not going to be an easy thing because there is a lot of imbalance right now in the world from the background energy going on of the Uranus Saturn square all the time, and then all this Aries energy coming in can make it very, very where everyone's kind of lost in their own little world and what's agitating them. And it's very difficult for them to come out of that and relate to others and without feeling kind of like an irritation or some kind of anger that somehow you're then not getting violated somehow and you're not giving up too much. So it's going to be a really interesting balance to try to work through this week, because it really is showing that that basically problems that you've had, issues that you're having with other people that you haven't been like, that haven't been worked on yet, or have been kind of like not directly confronted, are going to remain an irritant, and they're going to continue to churn inside you. So until you figure out a way to find some balance with that, or with the people where you're feeling that towards, it's going to be a tricky little line to walk in a balanced way without feeling, that some type of like thing is upsetting that balance and throwing things off, and that there's not enough receptivity coming in. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So, the Sun Venus too, incidentally, can also bring, for some of us, that can bring like windfalls, can bring us some assets, bring us some money. And it is also a very highly creative energy too. So we may be able to seek like healing forms through our own creativity, through, whatever is our own artistic output. And that's something we can really push, to use that Venus energy that's very, or an Aries energy that's very individualized, and not upset other people, because we're focusing something on ourselves and putting a creative output out ourselves. So that's somewhere where that energy can be used. But yeah, some of us may find, like we're getting new people, new experiences, new assets, new creativity coming to us that we can start new projects, new beginnings, new things with under this Venus-Sun conjunction. That could be a very healing thing on our path. When we bring in the Chiron, bring very self-nurturing, bring in the Ceres. So a lot of this energy may be once again best used for ourselves rather than projecting it out onto other people, because it's just going to be a very hard balance to walk on the line of trying to find equilibrium between you and others this week. All right, for the most part, that's the main energy of the week, these two things, and definitely not the easiest week. and more having to do with things that, really probably have already been going on, and they're just going to reach a point where out in the light of the full moon, they're going to have to be dealt with. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. Um, it is not only available on YouTube, where you become a follower by having a YouTube account, hitting the follower, and turning your notifications on, and then you'll always get a message from YouTube that a new blog has come up. But it's also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other podcasts. You just have to look up Astrological Winds channel, and you can find it there too. This is a free service. I'd appreciate it if you pass it on to anybody that you think might have an interest in astrology. Have them join our little family here. And anybody who needs a reading, I'm always available for all kinds of readings. Natal charts, that's your birth chart. Predictive readings, looking at your next year ahead to see what kind of energy is in store for you for the year ahead. Children's readings, relationship charts. Fixed star readings for deeper soul purpose, election charts for finding the best timing for something, horary charts if you have a burning question, emotionally charged that you're having a hard time getting an answer to. So all kinds of readings and classes available too. Classes available through Dropbox right now. $25 a class. Unless you're a student with a student ID, then they're $20 a class. And right now I got the full zodiac, going through the full signs in 3 classes up there. So you can take the classes sequentially if you're really interested in learning astrology, or if you're just interested in, an individual one-off class, you can take them that way too. And just contact me for any of my services at matthue823@gmail.com, and we can talk about costs and things like that. If you have a group that's looking for a lecture, things like that, I'm also available for that too. So this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. Next week, the month will be turning over, so I'll probably have a look at the month ahead also for April. And we will continue to deal with what I told you was the main monthly energy this month of this Chiron Aries, Ceres Aries, and self-healing journey that we are all on right now. All right, until next week, this is Matt Lawton signing off on the Astrological Winds channel. You take care.